talk. I'm not sure I can hear you guys.
Hi.
You are in Florida, right?
Yes. In Florida.
Today. Our temperature here last night in Yellowstone was freezing.
Over here.
Yellowstone is way over here. You'd have to go all the way to Wyoming and up into this corner by Montana to get to Yellowstone from Florida. Yellowstone is in the Rocky Mountains, and it's quite high in elevation, so our climate is very cold, like living in the high mountains. The kids who have been here, did you come in the summer?
No. I come in the winter.
You did? Oh, isn't it a magical place in the winter?
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. A lot of snow. Most of our winter looks like this.
Whoa.
Alright, well, I understand
Jordan.
you guys have been talking about wolves, and so I'd like to spend some time talking about wolves, but first let's do a little bit of just general information about Yellowstone. So there are over 4 million people a year who come to Yellowstone. That's a whole lot of people, and they come from all over the world. There's 2 top reasons that they come. Can you guys tell me what those 2 reasons are?
Raise your hand, and I will call on you. Ryan.
Maybe for like a family trip.
Definitely they come with their families, but there's 2 things at Yellowstone they want to see. What would those be?
Jordan.
They want to see the wolves.
They want to see the wildlife. Wildlife is one of the top 2 reasons that people come. What's another reason?
Shelby.
What's at Yellowstone that is nowhere else in the world?
The plants.
Say it loud.
The plants.
The plants are beautiful, but there's a lot of places with beautiful plants. Yellowstone has something that's really special. Only here.
And we actually haven't talked about it, so they might not know.
Okay. Yellowstone has something called geysers. Have you heard of geysers?
Yes.
Wow, they're amazing. They're places where hot boiling water.
Can you actually burn if you go into?
No. You cannot just
ground
speak
maybe as high as a 8-story building, and sometimes it just shoots out, oh, maybe as tall as you are. But those are geysers where water erupts out of the ground, and there's over 500 geysers in Yellowstone National Park. People who come to Yellowstone want to see geysers. And there's one geyser here that is famous. Do you know the name of the famous geyser?
Shelby.
Old Faithful?
Yeah, Old Faithful. Can you see all the people gathered around to watch Old Faithful erupt? And Old Faithful is called Old Faithful because it's one of the few geysers that the rangers can predict when it's going to erupt. And these days it's erupting about every hour and a half. So anybody who comes to Yellowstone, if they have an extra hour and a half to wait, they can see a geyser erupt. And most people want to see that. It's a really thrilling experience to see water come shooting out of the ground like that. But Yellowstone is also famous for its hot springs.
Whoa.
So you're at a pool of very hot water, boiling hot water. And if you can see down there where it's dark, that's the vent. And the water is coming up from deep underground, and it circulates up and down and around. And there's thousands of hot springs in Yellowstone. There's also something called the mud pots. These are places where there's like gooey mud, and the gases from underneath the earth come up, and when they hit the surface they make these bubbles, and then the bubbles pop, and because it's thick slurpy mud, when they pop they make a noise like when you smack your lips together. See if you can do that 3 times. That's exactly what it sounds like when you're standing next to a mud pot. So Yellowstone has some amazing things that people want to come and see and experience. But are there mud pots and hot springs and geysers where you live in Florida? or the boiling water will shoot out of the ground.
Called
What is
lava.
it that's making the ground so hot?
Blaine? Blaine? Say it.
Lava.
Say it loud.
Yeah, good
Lava.
job. Now what do we call lava when it's underground?
Say it, class.
Well done. Underneath Yellowstone National Park is a giant volcano. And so the magma that's inside that volcano heats the rocks, and those rocks heat the water, and that's what causes it to boil and come out of the earth. If we could cut the earth in half, which we can't, we think underneath Yellowstone would look something like this. So here is Yellowstone National Park, mountains and rivers and streams, and just a couple of miles below the surface of the earth is a giant magma chamber. Pretty amazing. All right. Yep, so Yellowstone was protected in 1872, so just about 150 years ago, because the government, the president, and Congress wanted to protect those hot springs. They didn't want to let people buy up that land and build factories or mansions or put up gates. They thought this place was so amazing because of the hot springs and the geysers that they wanted it so that every American could come and see these things. And so Yellowstone became the very first national park in the world in 1872. Now before I go on to talk about the ecosystems that are protected here, do you have any questions about the hot springs and geysers, the volcano?
Nadir. See if you can use that.
My question is, do you guys predict that maybe the volcano can erupt?
Do we think that the volcano can erupt? Was that your question?
Yes.
It is an active volcano. It is closely monitored by the scientists. They measure the earthquake waves, they measure the bulges as the magma shifts around, they measure the heat on the surface of the ground. So they believe that if it became active enough to erupt, they would be able to give us about a 2-week warning. But it is an active volcano, so it could erupt, or it could be thousands of years before it erupts again. We just can't predict that. Maybe your generation will figure out a way to predict those things.
All right, one more question about the hot springs. Josiah.
Has Old Faithful been around for about 200 years?
Oh, yes, yes. Old Faithful's been around, oh gosh. Let me think of my geology timeline here. At least a couple 100,000 years is, I believe, the date the scientists dated some of the rocks. Oh, but I could be wrong. Let me write that down and I'll email your teacher because I don't want to give you bad information. Okay, so I will email your teacher when I get the right answer on that. So now, because so much land was protected inside the boundaries of the national park, over 2 million acres, that's kind of a hard number to imagine, but it's huge. Yellowstone is a huge wilderness area that is protected. Many different types of ecosystems were protected. So you have in Yellowstone beautiful high mountains and meadows, thousands and thousands of acres of forest, and a lot of rivers and lakes
There's a rainbow.
and ponds. You have extremely high mountains that stay snow covered most of the year. And along with grasslands and meadows, there's a variety of different types of ecosystems. So when you have a lot of diversity in landscape, you're going to have a big diversity of animals that live in a place like Yellowstone. So you have animals that are herbivores, and what do herbivores eat?
Herbivores. Herbivores eat plants. We haven't studied that yet.
Omnivores eat meat.
Plants, the grasses, the bushes. There's a lot of herbivores that live in Yellowstone. And then because you have a lot of herbivores, you're also going to have what else?
Carnivores.
Carnivores and omnivores. Good job, guys.
Omnivores
So
are things
Yellowstone
that
is
eat
wild.
plant and
There's no cages or fences, and the rangers don't feed the animals. It's truly a wilderness place, which is what makes it so magical when you visit. But now the largest mammal in North America lives in Yellowstone. Wears this on its head.
a bull.
Rhino.
I don't think that there's
A
any
goat,
rhinos in
a
North
bull,
America.
bison,
Goat.
elephant.
Rhino.
The
The
bison.
over here. How's that help?
A
bison.
bison. Goat.
The bison.
A bull.
It is the bison. Good job.
Dang it.
There are about 4,000 bison.
Do you have elk?
Okay,
So
don't shout
some really
questions.
big herds of bison. When you come to Yellowstone, you can see the bison grazing out in the meadows. That's a really big animal. Some of the larger males can weigh up to 2,000 pounds, and they're eating grass, so it takes a lot of grass to fill them up. They have to eat about 10 hours a day to have enough food. You can see how big they are compared to cars.
What?
Yeah, and because it's a wilderness, when a herd of bison wants to cross the road, the cars just have to stop and wait till that herd crosses the road. It's a very exciting experience. And if you come in the springtime, you can see the bison calves. They are so cute. You are absolutely right. Now there's another very large herbivore, and this herbivore is actually the favorite food of the wolves. And it wears this on its
Oh, I
head.
think they know.
Elk. Good job.
I was gonna say a moose.
Most of the time people say deer, but it is a large member of the deer family. It's an elk.
I was gonna say moose.
I
All
hunt.
right, do you know if this is a male or a female elk?
That's
Oh, that's a
Female. That's a male.
Somebody, so I need you guys to raise your hand and let your teacher call on somebody because there's so many of you. And
Yeah,
the
so
speakers
it's
are a little
one time
slower.
at a one time, one at a time. So Jose,
It's a male.
nice and loud.
It's a male
It's a male. Good. And Jose, why do you think it's a male?
because it's horned.
He said
Can you
it's
help Jose
horns.
out? Why is it a male?
Because it has big horns.
Right, it has those big antlers. The females don't have antlers. There's a female.
That looks like a llama.
Good job. Now,
Yeah, that
elk
looks like a
are also
llama.
extremely large. Can you see how big it is compared to that car?
Oh my god.
Remember, we're not
Remember
having side
we're in the
conversations.
part, that has adorable
They have the white spots on it.
Now, elk make up a big part of the wolf diet. And I know you guys have been studying wolves, or can you tell me something you know about the wolves in Yellowstone?
Allison,
That the wolves, they were killed by hunters, and a lot of people wanted to build roads, farms, and towns over their environment or where they once grazed.
Oh, well said. I missed some of that, but I think you said they were killed so people could build things where they live.
yes.
So, you guys have heard of westward expansion when people like in covered wagons started moving west and homesteading lands, right?
Yeah.
You know about that, a little bit about that history. In the early days, in the 1872, when Yellowstone was established, there weren't a lot of people out here in Wyoming and Montana territory. But the people who started coming in, they brought with them things like sheep and cows. And the wolves naturally thought, oh, good, a new food source. And people of that time, 150 years ago, believed that all predators were bad. So they shot all the predators that they saw. They wiped out the wolves and the coyotes and the mountain lions. Thankfully, we can learn from our mistakes. And we understand now that wolves are really important to a naturally balanced ecosystem. And can anybody in your class tell me why?
Why are they important, Jordan?
Because they are important because like so we don't have like lots of elk or other like animals there.
Excellent. And what would be the problem with having too many elk or bison or
Ryan?
deer?
The
Loud.
problem is because there wouldn't be enough grass for all the other animals, for all the other herbivores.
Absolutely. The problem would be that all of those herbivores would eat up all of the food, and then they die in the winter from starvation, and that's a vicious cycle. So we've learned from that terrible mistake that we need predators in a healthy ecosystem. So the wolves were brought back to Yellowstone in 1995, and it's been a very successful experiment in that since they were introduced, the population of the herbivores has maintained a pretty steady balance. And the wolves also help many other species. Now the wolves are very successful, I shouldn't say very successful, they're successful hunters.
Embarrassed.
That being said, they only kill like 1 out of 10 times that they go out for a meal. But they're successful because of something, a behavioral adaptation they have. So when you talk about a 100-pound animal that is hunting something that might weigh 800 pounds or 1,000 pounds, what is the behavioral adaptation that makes it so that these smaller animals can take down an elk or a bison?
What do you think? Landon?
Because they have like a lot of the wolves. Like they have a pack of the wolves.
They have a pack. He said they have a pack.
Nice! Yes, they hunt in packs. And that is why they are more successful than some of the other animals, because they have the packs where so they'll run like an elk until it starts getting tired and slowing down. And then as the wolves get tired, they drop to the back and some of the stronger runners come to the front. So they can run after an elk until they tire. But now once the wolves have made a kill, it's like a feeding frenzy for so many other types of animals, because a carcass will feed dozens and dozens of other species, from birds to foxes.
Yeah.
And who's on that carcass? Can you see?
Bear. My favorite animal.
That's a grizzly
There's
bear.
a
And the grizzly bear pack, but they take advantage of the wolves. After the wolves make a kill, the grizzly bears will wander up and they'll claim the carcass. And everybody has to wait until the grizzly bear has had its fill and then leaves, and then the wolves can get their carcass back, and the coyotes come in and the ravens, and then later on there's lots and lots of small like worms and bacteria that come and eat the carcass. So it's like a smorgasbord and all you can eat for the other animals in the wilderness. And so that's another benefit that the wolves have brought to Yellowstone. Do you guys have any questions about the reintroduction of wolves or the wolves' life cycle here in Yellowstone?
All right, Caitlin, nice and loud.
How many were brought back?
How many were brought back?
So over a period of 2 years, and let me check my statistics because I always forget, 31 wolves were brought back in 1995 and 96, and then in 97, 10 more came. And now there are about 100 wolves in Yellowstone, and they are, at this time, they're in about 10 different packs. But packs are pretty fluid, so some wolves might leave a pack and join another pack. So right now there's about 10 packs. That could change. And the packs, like I said, they change over time because maybe the young males will leave and join another pack. So there might be 8 packs some year and 12 packs another year.
All right, Blake. Nice and loud.
Do you name your animals?
No, we don't name the animals. They're wild. Our goal as the National Park Service is to keep them wild. When you name an animal, it's like almost like making it into a pet.
Raise your hand.
But we don't name them. Some of the wolves and the bears that are collared, the scientists put a collar on them. They have a number, but they don't have a name.
All right, Jacob. Nice and loud.
Do you work with the wildcrats?
What do you mean?
Wild cats?
Wildcrats.
What is that?
It's a kids TV show.
It's a kids TV show.
But they're real
Oh
people.
gosh, no, we don't.
They're real people though.
Okay.
And they help
Shelby.
animals. What kinds of animals do you track?
What kind of animals do we track?
Yes.
So the scientists in the park have collars on some of the wolves, not all of them. Some of the grizzly bears. They're even starting to collar some of the elk now, so that they can monitor the movements of the elk, like learn where they go in the different seasons. Okay, let's have one more question.
Jordan.
How many types of animals do you guys have there?
Oh, there are. Let me get you the exact numbers, because that's the sort of thing that for me is easier to look on the. Okay, so there's 67 species of mammals. There's 7 species of ungulates, so that's hoofed animals. 2 different types of bears. 285 species of birds, with 150 of those nest in the park. And then there's a variety of fish and amphibians and reptiles. There's a lot of diversity in Yellowstone.
So add that all
So I'm going to show you guys a wolf skull.
Whoa.
So this animal is a predator. It's a carnivore. And if you look at the teeth, you can see that the front teeth are sharp for ripping and biting into flesh. And then the back teeth, now tell me if you can see this clearly, yeah?
We can.
Yes.
These are all very sharp and jagged. And your back teeth are kind of flat. They're jagged, but they're flat. And what do you use those back teeth for?
To chew.
Amaris.
Chew. Those are your chewing teeth. And these carnivores don't have any chewing teeth. They will tear out hunks of meat and swallow it whole. They don't have the teeth to do the chewing. Now their eyes are in front. Granted their eyes aren't in there, but if they were, they look forward like your eyes do. And if we compare that, hold on 1 minute, to a prey animal, a herbivore. This is an elk, and it's not in very good shape, but can you see where its eyes are?
Yes.
So put your hands on your head where the eyes are. Right, they're over to the side. So if you're a prey animal, even from a small little mouse to a big bison, your eyes are on the side. And this eye sees this way, and this eye sees this way. So how does that help these animals survive in their environment?
Delaney.
It helps when wolves get behind them. They can see beside that can help them run away from the wolves.
Nice job, exactly. Good job. And then if you look at the teeth of a herbivore, they're jagged like yours are, but they're mostly flat, and that's because this animal chews its food. Now, when you compare that to the wolf, their eyes are looking forward. Now, think if you were one of those herbivores with your eyes on the side, and you were trying to run around the bases from home to first to second to third and back to home. How would that be with your eyes, one eye over here, one eye over here?
What do you think, Dylan?
I think you sense where you're going, like you can sense where you're going or something like that.
Did you hear him?
I can
He
hear.
thinks that they would have to sense where they're going.
It would, you're right, they have to use their senses other than just vision, because it would be really hard to run and tag a base if your eyes are on either side of your head. But the wolf is like you, and these eyes in front help the predators because that way they can follow their prey. Another thing about a wolf is that it has this big crest. You guys see that crest?
Yes.
Now your head doesn't have that, and some other animals don't have it, but some of your predators do. It's called a sagittal crest, and that tells us that the wolf has a very strong bite because that crest holds muscle that, hold on a minute, let me get it back together, that goes from here down to his lower jaw, making it so that when a wolf bites on something, it can hold on very tightly and it has a lot of power in its bite.
So, living in Florida, does an alligator have that?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow, I would have to think so. I don't know anything about alligators though. That's a good question. They have a very strong bite too, don't they?
Yeah, they have like.
Okay, kids, that's a research project for you.
Yes.
Do you have sharks?
Wait, she's not asking.
Now, in Yellowstone, there is a very large omnivore that many people hope to see while they're here. And what does an omnivore eat?
Plants and
Plants and animals.
I want to say.
This is one of our famous omnivores.
Grizzly
he's
bear.
stepping on what he caught.
Yeah, he's on a carcass, or she is on a carcass. Grizzly bears are quite large. You can tell it's a grizzly and not a black bear because it has a big hump over its shoulders.
Wait, what about?
And the grizzly bears eat more plants than they do meat. And that surprises some people because we all think that grizzly bears are, so vicious and aggressive, but they spend a lot of time in the meadows digging up roots and turning over rocks to get to the plants and the grubs and the worms and things underneath the boulders. They dig a lot, and they have these wonderful digging tools on the ends of their claws.
Looks like a dinosaur.
They're they're very muscular and very powerful, and then they have those claws, and that's what helps them do a lot of digging. And we can't leave the grizzly bears without showing a cute cub.
Could we ask you a question about the grizzlies? Did you hear me?
No.
Can we ask a question about the grizzlies?
Yes, please.
So there's a children's author, Lauren Tarshish, who just wrote the book I Survived the Grizzly Attack of 1967 or something like that. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't, but I'm going to write that down. Can you tell me the title again?
I Survived the Grizzly Attack. And her last name is Tarshish, Tarshis. She's very famous.
Okay.
And her book just came out, so my students haven't read it yet, but it's talking about the grizzly attacks that occurred in the 60s.
I don't know about that book. Is that the one where 2 women were killed in Glacier?
You know what? It is occurring in Glacier, not Yellowstone. You're right.
Well, that's okay. I mean, the grizzly bears there are the same species as here. So what is your question?
I just wondered, it seemed like the book was talking about that people weren't treating them as wild animals. They were feeding them and things, and that's what caused the problem.
Back in the 60s, we were a lot more ignorant than we are today about their behavior and how to respectfully let them have their space and keep them wild. I know in about the last 10 years, maybe 20 years, there's been less than one bear mauling or grizzly bear mauling or death in Yellowstone National Park, less than one a year. Sometimes we go a couple years without any incidences, and that's because we're doing a better job educating people. Hold on a sec. We never ever go in off the developed areas where there's lots of people. We go on any trails or away from the developed areas. We always carry bear spray with us. And this is a can of super powerful, like chili pepper. And if a bear starts to attack you or charge you, you spray the air in front of it with this really potent pepper, and it gets in the bear's mucous membranes, its nose and its eyes, and it bothers the bear, obviously, and the bear will leave you alone as it's dealing with that irritation, and you can leave the area. And then it eventually goes away. It doesn't hurt the bear permanently. But we've done a really good job, and all the campgrounds have bear-proof trash cans. If people camp in Yellowstone, they have to put their food in bear containers that the park has at every campsite. They lock, the bears can't get into them. So yeah, back in the 50s and 60s, there were a lot more incidences than there are today. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great. You guys have any more questions about the grizzly?
Dylan? I'm gonna give it to Blaine. Nice and loud.
This isn't really a question about the grizzly bears.
All right, but that's what we're asking about, so hand it to Nadir.
I wanted to know why grizzlies they eat meat, but they still prefer eating grass and herbivore food.
Well, that's not really a question we can answer. It's kind of like just their diets. Like it's what their bodies have adapted to, what their behavior has adapted to. Plants are extremely nutritious. They get a lot of energy from the roots. Now, we were talking about skulls, so let's look at this is an omnivore. This is a grizzly bear skull. And we have the front teeth that tell us it's a carnivore. It can rip into flesh. But look what we have back here. We have molars. And so that tells us this is an omnivore. It eats plants too. It chews its food. But as far as why they eat what they eat, it's really just an evolutionary thing, Most humans are omnivores too. And I guess we just get a good balance of minerals and vitamins and proteins that way. So I only have a couple more minutes. Do you guys want to keep asking questions for a couple more minutes? And
Sure.
Talk about the black bear? What questions?
I think so. There's quite a few that have their hand raised.
Okay, let's go with 5 questions.
Have you ever been almost attacked by a bear?
I have not. I'm very careful when I'm hiking on the trails. We make noise. I always carry bear spray. Bears only attack if they're startled, like you scared them, because they didn't see you coming and all of a sudden you're there. Or if it's a sow protecting her cubs, like she thinks that you might hurt her cubs. And I'm just very careful.
No. All right.
What has been your largest record for most bear attacks at Yellowstone?
Could you repeat that for me, please?
What has been your largest record of bear attacks at Yellowstone?
That's a statistic I'd have to look up. I think it's been so long since we've had a lot of bear attacks. I think about 4 years ago, 2 people were attacked, and that was very unusual. And both of them were caused by human error. Both people knew better, but they were in places they should have had bear spray or been being more careful. And I think both of them had to do with a sow protecting her cubs.
Caitlin?
What do you call a bear that, or any animal that eats meat and plants?
An omnivore.
Okay. Jose?
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
What do you do as a park ranger?
Great question.
If you work for the National Park Service, there are so many different types of careers and jobs you can have. I'm what's called an education ranger, so I get to spend my day with students. Some people are firefighters. National parks also have maintenance people that repair the roads and do the carpentry, repair the electrical systems in the buildings. There's a lot of people who work in the administration, like they do budget and hiring, that sort of thing. Scientists, there's wildlife biologists and fish biologists that live in the parks. There's a huge variety of jobs, and if you think working in the national parks is something you'd like to do, I bet you could find a fit.
Josiah,
And one more question.
nice and loud.
In a story that we read, it was saying that, like, if the wolves at Yellowstone disappeared, it was saying that the elk would eat too much grass, which would cause the gerbils and squirrels and stuff to not be able to flourish.
That is absolutely right. That sounds like a very good book. Predators, not just the wolves, but the mountain lions and the foxes, and even things like, you know, the bobcat, the small little bobcat. Even predators as small as the weasel are very important to keep them. They keep everything. They keep the populations in balance, and that helps everything, including the plants and the trees.
Do you have a picture of a marmot? Because they've never seen one.
That is my favorite animal. Let me see. Okay, here it is. The marmots that live in Yellowstone, I love their name. They're called yellow-bellied marmots.
Alright, listen. It looks like a squirrel.
They can kind of lounge there. They're just a very, really neat animal to see.
It looks like a squirrel.
And when they're frightened, they give up like a little yippy bark. And so that's how you first hear them. Then you look around and you can see them up on the hillside. But they have, when they're out eating, they always have one marmot who's on guard. And they have a certain bark that when the other marmots hear it, they all dive into their hole. So that's kind of like the guard marmot.
It's like the
All right, well,
groundhog.
I have to go, and I will look up the question of how old Faithful is, and I appreciate the tip on the book. I'll look into that. And it's been great talking to you guys today.
What do we say?
I